Can or bottle? That's the question today as we welcome you back to the UP Power Podcast. Keegan Cooper and Kevin McNulty with you. It's been a few weeks. We had Matt Mackrzak on last time. We were here on the pod in studio. That was a lot of fun. We will have more guests in the future as we move through the summer and get ready for fall sports to swing around again. But just us today. And Keegan, where do we start? But with NMU Lax wrapping up their season, one of the spring teams we've been keeping a close eye on because, well, the Wildcats had a great year, 14-5. In the end of it, they fall to Grand Valley in the GLIAC title game.
Yeah, I mean, Grand Valley State, what more can you say? They're
Right.
in the top 10 in the nation. They've got some really great, dynamic players on that team. I mean, you saw last year, again, Northern plays a Grand Valley State team that's good. They come up just one goal short. This year, I think Grand Valley a little bit more dominant in that game.
Well, top 10 all season
Top 10,
long,
yeah.
too. So when you think about it, it was a very successful season.
Yeah.
But as we talked to Lindsay Mackrzak and, where she's taken the program since it was founded, she's taken it a long way. But I think you and I were both saying just a little bit ago that the next step is beating Grand Valley eventually.
Yeah, beating
They
Grand
were
Valley.
undefeated in GLIAC play otherwise. Concordia, St. Paul, and Davenport didn't really match up with them very well. There were a couple blowouts in there, a couple that were a little bit more tight. But, yeah, GLIAC title game, Grand Valley wins 13-3. Cats never really in that one. That was coming off a 9-goal win over Concordia St. Paul on Friday in the semifinals. Then you go back. It wasn't that long ago when they took on Grand Valley State at their place 13-2. They lost that one. Then back here on April 5th, it was a 17-6 loss. So they didn't really come that close to knocking off the Lakers this year. As we mentioned, a top 10 team and a really great overall season for the Cats. Minnie Battelle, over 100 goals on the year. She was fantastic. And guess what? Looking forward, the freshman of the year in the conference, Josie Lukowski, she was outstanding too, putting up numbers for the Cats.
Yeah, and that was a great dynamic to see, Kevin, this veteran senior doing her thing, but then also this standout freshman coming onto the scene and also providing for the Wildcats. And that's, you can be hopeful for the future when players like that are having standout, freshman seasons and, what's to come. But that is the question is now, okay, we've now been in the GLIAC championship for the last 2 years. We played the same team the last 2 years, and we've lost to that same team the last 2 years. And it's tough. They're top 10
There's
in
definitely
the
a
nation.
hierarchy in the conference, especially when you think about there's only 4 teams for women's lacrosse. So you're playing the same 3 teams over and over again, which they did really well against Concordia and Davenport, as I mentioned. Next step, beat Grand Valley at least once next year, right? I think that would be the big hope.
Yeah, that would be that.
It would
that's
be
the
extra
goal.
nice if it was in the GLIAC title game.
Yeah, it would be. That's the goal. And, strategy, there's things to work on and things that you see against Grand Valley. Obviously, when you're a top 10 team in the nation, they're going to change things for next season. There's going to be things that they work on. They're going to have new players come in. But that is the next step, is how do we get to the GLIAC championship and how do we win the GLIAC championship? More than likely against a very good Grand Valley State team. For
sure, and I think another positive about their season, we mentioned all the production from the attackers in Battelle and Lukowski and company, but their defense was stout all season long. You think back to February, they had that stretch of games they were hosting at the Superior Dome, which is an advantage in the non-conference because in February, a lot of the teams in the Midwest would like to go play in a dome. So they were playing at home, and February 23rd, they gave up 25 goals to Maryville. Really good team, but then you go down the list of every game they played, and they didn't give up 20 again, even when they played Grand Valley. The most goals they gave up was 17, so their defense was really strong all year, and you'd expect that to carry over kind of the culture that, Lindsay is building, and that includes her defensive players were really, really strong down the stretch.
No, exciting to see defense. They're going to have offense, but exciting to see their defense be that strong and have that much production and get those stops. And, oftentimes, their defense was helped to be a product of their offense. They get a stop on one end and then they go down the other end and they score. They get a stop on one end, they go down the other, and they score. And so now it's, how do we put that together? How do we boost it a little bit? And how do we beat Grand Valley State? I want to see it. I know they can do it. I know that they can get it done. But it's just about getting to that point, getting over that hill.
For sure, it's the next infinity stone, right?
Yeah.
As you try and piece things together. But definitely a fun season for the Cats. Like I said, 14-5. A couple of their seniors graduated from Allendale, Michigan, where they were playing in the GLIAC championships. So that was fun to see. And we'll see what they come back with next year, as both universities here in Tech and Northern are done for the year. Spring semester's over. They've graduated their seniors, so we'll pick back up with them. Of course, we'll push out some content and talk to some of those coaches and new players as they come in during the off season. But yeah, that kind of closes the book on the spring sports season for the colleges. Yeah, some exciting news today, the schedule unveil for the CCHA. Of course, last week it was announced that the CCHA has a new streaming home, a Midcoast Sports Plus. Pretty much a similar experience to Flow Hockey. It'll be branded as CCHA TV, but just a different place to go and purchase those games to be streamed. It'll be over 180 events next year. Of all the CCHA games, you'll get them on Midcoast Sports Plus, a streaming platform that comes out of the Dakotas. Of course, the conference is adding Augustana from South Dakota. So it's exciting time for the conference. And let's take a look at the schedules for next year as we get going. Let's start with Northern. In October, Colorado College. They'll be on the road to take on Colorado College. This is the non-conference. Then home for Alaska Anchorage. This is October. Then home for Arizona State. Remember, they went out to ASU last year. Now the Sun Devils will come up to Marquette, Michigan in late October. And we have an early rivalry matchup, November 1st and 2nd. Tech and Northern will go head-to-head to open the CCHA schedule. That's exciting. I don't know if we'll be ready for that rivalry. Obviously, it'll be in Marquette on Friday, then in Houghton on Saturday. But November 1st and 2nd, that's early.
That is early. And when you talk about, getting into the conference play, not always do you want to play a rival that early in the season.
It's each team's first CCHA game.
But they're going to have to be ready for it. Northern Tech, we've seen it. It's always a battle. It's always a battle for 3 periods on the ice. Fun games to be at. The environment is electric. Whether it's at Northern or whether it's at Tech, it doesn't matter. Fan bases come out, and it's going to be exciting to see what the Wildcats and the Huskies have going on.
For sure, especially when you think about the transfer portal and how much turnover there will be on each roster, especially Northern, when you talk about the 14 guys that are exiting the program. A large freshman class coming in for the Wildcats, ranked very highly. It'll be interesting. NMU might need some time to mesh. When you're thinking about that, a couple series in October. Like I said, they will open up on the road, then be in Marquette for back-to-back series. But then, boom, CCHA play, and you're taking on your rival.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to hit the ice sprinting because it's gonna come quick, and that's with any season when you think about it. You have your non-conference schedule and you kind of get eased into playing it, and then as soon as conference play starts, every game, every point matters. And both Northern and Tech are going to have to make sure that they, get those points so they're higher in the standings this year.
Neither team started strong last year in October. They were on the struggle bus, both of those teams in October. I don't think Tech had a regulation win in October last year. Obviously, they'll want to change that moving forward. But as we move through Northern's schedule, guess what is the following week after Tech? It's the Wildcats' other rival in Lake State, playing for the first 2 games of the Capo Cup. So Lake State at home the following weekend, November 8th and 9th. And then they will go to Mankato mid-November for a series at Minnesota State. Augustana, not officially in the CCHA. Okay. They will do the same thing they did this year, play a series against each team in the conference, so that'll happen. Now the Wildcats will go to Augustana in Sioux Falls the last weekend of November. Then Ferris State at home, Bowling Green on the road, and of course both teams will be taking part in the GLI this coming year. So NMU will have Michigan State on the semifinal round of the GLI. So that's, of course, Michigan State, the team that Tech took down to win the GLI last year. That will be December 29th, and then the championship game and third place game will take place on Monday, December 30th. And remember, it's all 4 Michigan teams.
All 4 Michigan.
2 teams here from the UP, and then Michigan State and Western Michigan have both taken part in the GLI in the past. Of course, that's a great event back at Van Andel Arena in Grand Rapids once again. Hopefully, one or both of us will be there once again.
Yeah.
I was there this past year. It was a lot of fun as we aired those games on Fox UP. Might happen again. We'll find out. Starting the new year, 2025, NMU will host Mankato, and then they'll be at Bemidji State. Round 2, games 3 and 4 of the rivalry will take place January 24th and 25th. Friday in Houghton, Saturday in Marquette. And then the Wildcats are home for Bowling Green at Lake State to start out February 7th and 8th. And then they are home for St. Thomas, on the road for Ferris State to wrap up the CCHA season. So it's top-heavy for sure.
Top-heavy for sure, and what stands out to me is I think
the 4 rivalry games to start the conference season.
Yeah, November, I mean, you look at, they open with Michigan Tech rivalry. Capo Cup, games 1 and 2 against Lake Superior State. After that, they have Mankato, a team that has beaten them in the CCHA playoffs in the past couple seasons. I would
that would be in 2023 when NMU went all the way to the Mason Cup final.
Yeah, I would almost argue that that's become maybe not a little bit of a rivalry, but a little bit of we want to beat this team because they've beaten us.
Well, even this year when there was so much parity in the conference, 1 through 7 heading into the final weekend could have been, anywhere. Heading into the Mason Cup playoffs. And Minnesota State was always at the top. And then, of course, Tech went on their run in the playoffs and went to Mankato and beat the Mavericks. So, I think they're the team in the conference still. Even this past year, they missed out on the national tournament because only one CCHA team was getting in, and that was the winner of the Mason Cup. Tech, of course, going on to lose to Boston College in the first round, but still, I think Mankato is the team that everyone wants to beat in the conference.
Yeah, I think they're the, if you will, my analogy, I think they're the punching bag, and everybody wants to give it a swing and kind of take out the Mavericks because the Mavericks have had successful their seasons. They're a great program, and they are I'm going to say it right now, my hot take, they're the team to beat next season.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully we'll do a little bit better on our preseason rankings than we did. But there were so many moving pieces. You didn't really know how it was going to shake out. And, of course, with the transfer portal, you had some guys transferring within conference. We'll see some different guys, in new sweaters next year, and that'll be weird for a while. Luigi Benincasa was Ferris State's best player this past year. He's staying in the conference after transferring away. So we'll see. Bowling Green, new head coach. We'll see what that brings, but definitely exciting to see how it shakes out. And more importantly, I think NMU and Tech included, CCHA needs to do a better job of winning out of conference.
Yeah, you gotta
to boost that stock.
Boost that stock, and then my hope is that next season we see a little bit more teams win in their non-conference schedules, so that we see a little bit more of separation when it comes to the CCHA standings. They get some wins under their belt, they get some confidence in non-conference, so they come into conference play and they continue that trend of winning. Too many splits, right? Too many win one, lose one, and don't really get that many points, so everybody
That's what we
ties.
saw a lot of this year, and in particular, if you really want to dive in, against the Big Ten, the CCHA struggled. The only victory was Tech over Michigan State in the GLI final. Outside of that, the conference was winless against the Big Ten. Obviously, A lot of those schools nearby, you're talking Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, Michigan State. And even that win in the GLI for Tech was a shootout victory.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't even have been 2-3 points. So,
yeah.
They need to do a better job. I imagine both schools will add a couple of non-conference series to this because as of right now, as we flip over to Tech's schedule for next year, they will open October 11th at Alaska. Alaska was here in Houghton last year, so that would be a home and home. They will open the season against the Nanooks, who had a pretty strong season last year. We saw them at the GLI as well, and then it's home for Clarkson, the 25th and 26th. That's why I think there might be a series added in between those two non-conference matchups. As of right now, NMU has 3 non-conference series scheduled, so no Big Ten teams on the schedule as of right now outside of the GLI.
Put them on there.
It was Wisconsin last year that came up to play Tech. That didn't go very well for the Huskies. That was in October when they weren't winning a lot of games. So we'll see. Of course, Michigan State will be in the GLI taking on NMU in the semifinals. So we'll move on with Tech as we get into the CCHA schedule. Obviously, they're opening with NMU November 1st and 2nd. Then they are at Ferris State, home for Mankato, which was the Winter Carnival Series last year. They didn't have the Mavericks in Houghton until February. Well, they have them in November, the 22nd and 23rd, coming to Houghton this time around. And then wrapping up November, the Huskies will be at Bowling Green. Then St. Thomas comes to town, and then they are at Bemidji State, December 13th and 14th before the GLI, a little 2-week break for those guys around the holidays. Tech will take on Western Michigan, as I mentioned, the 4th team in the Great Lakes Invitational this year. That's on the 29th, and of course, either the championship or 3rd place game on the 30th.
Yep.
And the Huskies will open January 2025 against UMass Lowell in Palm Springs, so that would be a second non-conference midseason tournament for the Huskies. And then on January 4th, they will take on another team. I imagine that will be a quad for those teams getting together, but they open that tournament with UMass Lowell. Then it's back into the CCHA. Lake State comes to town January 10th and 11th. Then they are at Mankato the following weekend before the home and home against Northern in games 3 and 4 of the rivalry. For the Huskies in February, home for Bemidji State, then at Augustana. Remember, Augustana played all the road games last year. Now they get all the home games for the CCHA. Then the following year, they're incorporated into the conference as they had a successful first season. They had great crowds there all season long. So we'll see when they officially become members in 2025, the fall of 2025. We'll see what they bring to the conference. And then wrapping up for Tech, it's home for Ferris State and at St. Thomas to close out the season, February 28th and March 1st.
Yeah, wow.
I just ripped through it, but two midseason non-conference tournaments for the Huskies. I like that.
I like that too. Kind of, sometimes, it becomes we're in conference play now, and it's another conference opponent, it's another conference opponent, and it's another conference.
It's good to mix it up, and the GLI is good for that.
Mix it up.
But they're adding another one to it.
Get that break. Maybe get to see a team that you're not going to see. And that gives you kind of, there's a lot of stress that comes with being in conference play and this rigorous schedule. And the CCHA, when you look at it last year, obviously there wasn't any separation. So a lot of these teams are very similar on success levels, right? And so to have a break and maybe not play another conference opponent, I think it's a good, step back of, okay, we're not playing, somebody else in the conference this week. But got to win those games, so that you have the confidence when you come back to CCHA play, and you got to win those games.
Exactly. Which Tech didn't do a strong job of. And I referenced their October last year where things weren't going well. So in Palm Springs, the Coachella Valley Cactus Cup, they're calling it. So obviously UMass Lowell first day, and then they will take on either Holy Cross or Omaha. On the second day of that tournament. It'll either be the championship or the 3rd place game again, but 2 East Coast schools in there with UMass Lowell and Holy Cross, and then Omaha out there joining them as well. So that's interesting. That's kind of what stood out to me about Tech's schedule.
Yeah.
Obviously, when you get into CCHA play, it's kind of all similar, but closing out the season at St. Thomas could be very interesting too.
Could be fun playing against the Tommies on the road and what happens. And I think the big thing is, they always say, when you get in a conference play in hockey, each weekend you want to come away with 3 or more points. Well, I think for the CCHA this next season, if you want to be one of those top 2 teams when you hit the Mason Cup playoffs, you need to be coming away with 5 and 6 points on a weekend. You need to be getting some sweeps, right? When you look at the conference schedule, you need to probably sweep 50% of those matchups, I would say, to put yourself up there, right? I hope, and I'm predicting, I'm making a hot take here, that there's going to be some more separation in the league this next season.
I would agree, because Ferris State was the only team that was kind of out of it on the low end in 8th place for the majority of the conference season. Everyone else was kind of in it, and even who was going to get the number 1 seed in the playoffs, you didn't know until the final day of the regular season. So perhaps that'll be a little bit different. We mentioned the turnover with NMU, 14 guys out, large freshman class coming in, and then a couple guys out of the portal as well. With Tech, it was 5 or 6 that hit the portal to go elsewhere. I mentioned Kyle Kukkonen and Rylan Mosley going to become Wisconsin Badgers. That was a team they played last year. But Tech's also getting a pair of Big Ten players from Michigan State. 2 guys that didn't get a lot of ice time on what was a championship-level team this past year, winning the Big Ten regular season and the tournament against Michigan. The Spartans were great. Those were guys that only picked up a couple of points because they didn't have that many opportunities. Well, they will be coming to Tech. Victor Hertig among them. And we'll see what that turns out to be. And as we mentioned with NMU, might take some time. They will be playing more freshmen than last year, pretty much without a doubt. And also might be starting a freshman in net.
Yeah, you could see that, and I think it's
Slukinski, Grant's brother.
And I think it's exciting, an opportunity for these freshmen to play at the next level of hockey and get ice time and kind of prove themselves. And for Tech, too, getting those Michigan State transfers, I think that's huge, right?
Yeah.
Maybe those guys didn't get the ice time, but they've been on a program that wins and wins consistently. And so they're going to bring that into the locker room and hopefully, spread that out amongst the Huskies who are already there and say, hey, this is what we've been a part of and we want to bring it here. Kind of have some of that veteran leadership of, we won. We know what it takes to win.
And obviously they're talented guys too, because they were recruited to play at Michigan State. So we'll see how it works out for them.
I'm excited. Can hockey start tomorrow?
No, you have to wait quite a while. The other news of the week that was surprising, that Austin Swankler will be playing Division III hockey next year.
Yeah, that was very surprising take. He entered the
at
Chatham, entered the transfer portal. I mean, was not expecting to
Well,
see
he only saw time in 10 games for
10
Tech
games,
before he got hurt, and of course that was off after he didn't play the entire first semester because he was on his way out of Bowling Green and had to enroll at Tech before he could suit up. So it will not really go down in history, Austin Swankler's time at Michigan Tech, and he is off to play D3. Carson Stokes, also from NMU, is leaving to play D3 hockey. That makes a little bit more sense because he was never the Conference Player of the Year like Swankler was, but that's how these things go from time to time, that the grass isn't always greener, and Swankler, we'll see if he can make anything out of his career at Chatham, but again, like both of us, not expecting that.
Not expecting that, no.
And I should mention, as we talked about, the defenseman from Michigan State that's joining the Huskies next year, Victor Hertig. The other player was a freshman last year, Owen Baker, Michigan State. As a freshman, he's a forward. And Hertig, also worth mentioning, is a 6th-round draft pick of the New Jersey Devils. So they'll have another NHL draft pick on the squad next year. Good on hockey?
Good on hockey. We've got some time before the season starts. The big things is
plenty of time.
You've got to win your games in the conference, and the CCHA, we want to see some separation next year.
Well, next for us, as we look ahead to next month, the UP Football All-Star Game, Advantage Sports taking it over, Dustin Branshaw saving the day after Excel no longer wanted to sponsor the game. So we have rosters.
For
the UP All-Star Game, which is very exciting. Team Black and Team Red. Hoping to get Dustin Branshaw on the program here in a couple weeks to talk about what might be different about All-Star Week this coming year. Of course, on one side, a lot of Gladstone players as we look at the rosters here, Keegan.
Mm-hmm.
The other side, a lot of Menominee players. And why? Because when they did the draft, Chad Brandt of Menominee said, I get all the Maroons.
Yeah.
And then similar for Gladstone, all the Braves will be on one team. So that's already something that is a little bit different. Heading into the UP All-Star Game this year, June 22nd at the Superior Dome. We are looking forward to it. A lot of these seniors that we covered a lot during their high school careers, ready to wrap that up by playing in the All-Star Game. Let's start with Team Red, which is Chad Brandt's team, Menominee, with all the Maroons. And the Maroons that will be representing Menominee in the game, Trevor Turkoff, the quarterback, Landon Bardowski, running back, Tyler Smith, Aaron Brunell, Eli Beal, listed as wide receiver, was a tight end a lot for the Maroons this past season, but there might be
some moving around and jumping in this. Yeah,
and then Torrin Davis as well, a defensive back from Menominee. So those are the Maroons, of course, that went all the way to the Division VII state title game last year, and Trevor Turkoff, the only quarterback listed on the roster, in addition to Danny Marcotte from Lake Linden, who's another quarterback for Team Red.
Yeah, so
another team that went far in the eight-man playoffs.
Yeah,
last year.
we looked at this roster a little bit earlier ago, and when I just look at these guys, got the Menominee guys, all those guys, very crucial to their team's success and moving them all the way to East Lansing, but all these guys. Kyla Carr,
Detroit,
Nagani.
Ford Field. You're thinking basketball.
I am thinking.
That was our most recent trip, though.
Yeah,
downstate.
Ford Field, Detroit. Kyla Carr from Nagani, Noah Johnson, Kingsford. All these.
That's pretty.
Tucker Welsh from Marquette.
That's pretty stacked.
Yeah, Alex Ortman, Norway.
With a bunch of college players here when you think about. Also, Johnny Ingles.
UP
Mr. Basketball is a wide receiver for the Red team as well. Joining him from St. Ignace, Trevor Visnaw had a great season for the Saints, their first year in 8-player. He will also be on Team Red as a running back, so that's interesting. But, yeah, we mentioned Kyla Carr, one of the top draft picks, the running back from Nagani, will obviously be moving on to play football at NMU next year with Trevor Turkoff, with Tucker Welch. Noah Johnson, the Defensive Player of the Year in the UP from Kingsford, will be playing at Tech next year. He's also on Team Red. So
Team Red.
We'll move on to Team Black in a minute, but that's pretty stacked.
That looks stacked.
Wyatt Lankinen from Marquette will be playing D3 at Platteville next year. So some really great players on this roster.
Yeah, we even have some Hematites on here. Hunter Smith of Ishpeming, Connor Gothier.
Who had a great season last year in Division V as well.
Yeah,
and of course, both of those guys play basketball as well.
Team Red looks good, and it's going to be exciting to see these guys. You see them for 4 years play against each other.
Yeah, exactly.
And to see them now for one game get to go out on the field, and it will probably be a little bit of a different feeling. They get a practice usually before they play the game.
Right, and they'll.
But it's weird because Trevor Turkoff handing the ball off to Kyla Carr might be a little bit of a weird.
But they're going to be college teammates, and I was talking
teammates.
to Trevor and Kai at the NMU spring game. They were both out there just to check it out on the sidelines, and I was like, "It's going to be weird for you guys to be teammates," and they're like, "No, we've known each other long enough." But
Kai scored enough touchdowns. Trevor's thrown enough touchdowns.
And they've seen each other do it enough times where it's probably not a bad thing to be excited about. Yeah. Being teammates for one game, and then in the case of those two guys, for the next 4 years. Yeah, some Norway guys on here, as you mentioned, Alex Ortman, Hayden Amundsen. So, yeah, that's Team Red in a nutshell. I'm not going to go player by player because there's about 50 players on each roster. But those are the guys that stood out to us. Then they also have Wyatt Dimmers from Manistee. Really great football and basketball player. He's listed as a flex on here, so he might be a secret weapon for Chad Brandt.
A secret weapon. We'll have to see what Wyatt Dimmers brings to Team Red.
But that's a very talented athlete. Let's move on to Team Black. Of course, all the Gladstone guys, Nate Young, Josh Racine, Caden Gibbs, Vinny Howes, Austin Solis. We had the injury early last year, so it'll be good to see him back out there. And Eli Bertham from Gladstone. So all those guys staying together. I guess it's Team Menominee and Team Gladstone in addition to Team Red and Team Black.
Yeah, and when you're the head coach of the UP All-Star Game, you want your guys.
I like it.
It's another chance for you to get to coach them one last time. So that's got to be a good feeling to be able to get your guys. Gladstone, love the Braves. Love Nate Young as a quarterback listed.
And Nate Young had a really great year.
Yeah, he did a great year. Ethan Ives from Barker River Harris also
is the other
here.
quarterback listed. Yep,
is the other quarterback. So it'll be exciting to see those two. Caden Gibbs, I've seen him catch a lot of touchdowns. I think back to the Nagani Gladstone game where he went up and got that one, and that was a late, long game, and that was exciting to see. Other standouts for me. I mean. First name on the list, Kevin. Do we even have to? Eli
Rouse, Mr. Football, in the UP out of Kingsford. So, of course, the Defensive Player of the Year also came from Kingsford last season. Well, he's on Team Red. His former teammate, Eli Rouse, suiting up for Team Black. And then Ben Johnson, the other running back, he will be playing at Tech next year, along with Iron Mountain's Matthew Kolovecki, wide receiver. Is also joining him on Team Black, so a couple more college players there.
Yeah, I mean, Gabe Popko, Lakeland and Hobel, Ian Pop, Norway. We can't forget Jacob Gorzinski from North Central.
Exactly.
James
so
Thomas, Nagani. I mean, both of
you
these
had
teams.
A couple of the Norway guys I mentioned on Team Red, but then on Team Black, you get Ian Pop showing up, and then Gabe Popko playing opposite his teammate and Danny Marcotte, who threw him the ball a lot last year as they were very successful in 8-man. Evan Gauthier representing Nagani for Team Black along with James Thompson. And as you go down the list, I'm liking Team Red a little bit more. Maybe that's the bias of watching Menominee go all the way to the state title game last year, but both teams really strong. You mentioned there's a Gorzinski on Team Black from North Central,
yes.
So that always bodes well.
You can't leave out the Gorzinski, of course. I mean, North Central just a phenomenal program. Exciting to see what they do. I don't know. You're saying Team Red. I'm kind of leaning toward Team Black. I think Eli Rouse and Matthew Kolovecki.
That's true.
And you've got Nate Young, who had a great year and is a successful quarterback. You got Ethan Ives that can also come in and throw the ball and is crafty for Barker River Harris.
Well, the other good thing about a high school all-star game is, these kids aren't going to take it easy on each other. That's not their style. It's not the NBA all-star game, okay? They're making $20 million a year. They're playing for pride, and they're going to play hard.
Yeah, they're playing for pride. They're playing for a little, especially these guys who are going on to play college that will either be teammates or may play against each other.
You'll think about, guys not wanting to get injured. I don't think you have to worry about that. They're going to play hard, and also hopefully no one gets injured as well on top of that. The other thing, Keegan, that stands out to me, we only have one Iron Mountain Mountaineer, that being, of course, Matthew Kolovecki. Just a reminder of how young that team was.
Yeah.
Because these, of course, are all seniors, the underclassmen and juniors included, not represented in the All-Star game. They will have their chance when they graduate. But, Iron Mountain, a team that went deep into the state playoffs last year. They were a lot of fun to watch, but, only one Mountaineer.
Are we hinting at that maybe next year we get Robin Martela and his Iron Mountain guys as they become seniors?
I would not be opposed to that.
I would not be opposed to that either.
more coverage for my main man, Robin. I'll sign up for that.
I mean,
any day of the week, man.
When I look at both of these rosters, Kevin, I see. I mean, these are some of the best, if not the best, players in the Upper Peninsula for the last year. And this senior class, a strong senior class. This game is going to be a lot of fun. The whole week, UP All-Star Week, is going to be a lot of fun. And even being at the last two, UP All-Star games, this is a huge week. That's just so great for these athletes to be able to
get
reflect.
together. It's somewhat of a fraternity of being, UP All-Stars in football, because, we're so insular in the UP, and you played against these guys for, 4 years, however long they were on varsity. So, it's good to get them all together. And I will certainly enjoy this one a lot more than I did last year, because that was my first week on the job. So I was out there covering these teams. I didn't know one of the players, so that'll be a change of pace this year.
We've seen, when we look at these lists, we've seen, I would argue to say, 90% of these guys play. 95%, we've seen a lot of UP football, and a lot of these guys we've seen play. You're leaning towards Team Red. I think I'm leaning towards Team Black. It's going to be a great game.
All right, well, we can't wager on it, but maybe there will be a fun little bet. We'll see. As we get closer, we will begin previewing the game and All-Star Week and everything that'll come with it. Thanks again to Dustin Branshaw for taking over the game and Advantage. I know a lot of athletes, Marquette County and beyond, train at Advantage. So really cool that this tradition gets to keep going. It will be a lot of fun that week. Again, June 22nd at the Superior Dome is the All-Star Game. We just took you through some of the rosters. We are looking forward to it. Keegan, talk a little bit baseball, softball, track and field, these spring high school sports.
Yeah, baseball, softball is
they're picking up.
Underway.
It's tough to get a gauge on a lot of the teams. Of course, baseball, softball more inclined to lose a little bit more games. No one's undefeated this time of year. But
when we talk about softball, of course, you have to talk about the Negaunee Miners, 17-0 to start the season.
Yeah, they're an outlier, being undefeated. They've been playing really well.
They're now 17-1, only have one loss. They just recently lost at the Candy Sweat Kiss Memorial Softball Tournament. They're our first loss of the year against a very good team. Negaunee's a standout. Lakeland and Hubble softball, have been watching them play. Escanaba, there's a lot of good teams when it comes to softball. Marquette, you're going to be excited.
Escanaba, even without Grayson LaMarche, who's moving on to play softball at Michigan next year, as she gets her body ready, which is probably a good move. We'd love to be watching her. Certainly understand that there's bigger fish to fry for her. But it's been good. We've had decent weather.
Yeah.
I know today we might strike out.
Today, we might. Yeah. Today, it's can't rain. And that's baseball, softball season. Some days it's going to rain, some days it's going to be sunshine.
It beats last year. This time there were still 10 inches of snow on the ground, right? So we'll take it. It's been fun. Some of the baseball teams, Escanaba's playing really well. Yeah. One of those guys, Ben Johnson, who we just talked about with the football all-star game, the running back, man, he's got a football build, but I've seen him on the basketball court. I've seen him on the baseball field now. Ben Johnson's just a great athlete.
He's an athlete.
And he's been really great for the Eskimos.
Yeah, Escanaba playing some good baseball, too. I know Gladstone's been in action, too. Hancock, the Bulldogs, their baseball team, will stand out.
They impressed me when I watched them play Negaunee. Yeah. It was a doubleheader, so it was also like 35 degrees and snowing. So hats off to those guys on that day a couple weeks ago when I watched them play at Negaunee. But Hancock had some dudes. They've been playing good ball as well. Yeah,
going to be exciting as we get down to the stretch. Especially here in the UP. Baseball and softball season's quick, and then we're in districts, and then we're going to be looking at the state tournament. Ishpeming softball playing really well. Have gotten some big wins against some teams in the last couple weeks. So going to be exciting to see them. Track and field too kicking off. Kevin, you're going to get to experience the UP track and field finals.
I'm looking forward to it because I've been to a couple track meets now. Got the lay of the land. Yeah, it's been fun to see some of these football players, like we just talked about, Kyle Lakar and Matthew Kolovecki run the 100-meter sprint. And Matthew, hope your hamstring's doing all right.
Yeah.
Sorry we aired that, but it was a really good race
Yeah.
from both of you guys. Luke Brackett from Gladstone.
Yeah,
That's a
great.
guy that we've both watched on the track, of course. A lot of the field events are hard for us to get to, but on the track,
Yeah.
Luke Brackett in the hurdles.
Yeah, just recently broke a record the other day. I mean, wow, was he flying. 14.94, don't quote me, seconds, 110-meter hurdles. I mean.
But being under 15 is huge, and
It's
you showed me
huge.
that video. It was the separation
Yes,
that
yeah.
he got.
Yeah, I mean, he was flying.
And that's only 110 meters. There's
Yeah.
not a lot of time to gain that
Yeah,
separation.
he was flying. So excited to see what he does, especially coming down the stretch. And the UP finals for track and field is always a fun day.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Kingsford, all the high schools, all the divisions, all the races, all the heats, all the whistles. Can we bring snacks, though?
Yeah, we can bring snacks.
Okay.
Don't worry.
we can bring snacks.
Don't worry.
We'll have snacks.
Sunflower seeds.
We'll have sunflower seeds, yeah.
And Diet Coke.
And Diet
apparently.
Coke. We'll
That-
have that.
That's our diet here in TV6 Sports.
We'll have that. We'll bring snacks and we'll be at the UP track and field. Excited to see, though. We've got, some invites and some opens to kind of wrap up the season before we get to the UP finals, and opportunities for teams to work on specific things and kind of set those. We've seen some PRs and some records already broken, but really focus in on the little things so that when they get to the UP finals,
Yep.
they're ready to go.
I watched Kyle Lakar a couple weeks ago at Nagani, set a new PR for him. I'm sure he's looking to beat that again in the 100-meter sprint. So we'll see. I'll be at some more track and field at Nagani on Friday. You'll be at some golf in Munising, so that's fun. We'll have the UP golf finals as well coming up as we move forward. But spring sports in full swing. We'll hope Mother Nature keeps delivering on the weather. Of course, today, notwithstanding, but we'll see as we move forward. All right, to wrap up, let's talk a little NBA, NHL playoffs. What's been going on? I'll start. Anthony Edwards is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And he's been playing really
Yeah.
well for Minnesota as it stands right now. They don't play again until Friday in that series with the Nuggets, but the defending champs on their home floor, Minnesota went in there and beat them twice. A couple really entertaining games. So
Yeah.
I've been locked into the NBA playoffs
Nah,
just because for a while there, late 2010s, it was like, okay, it's going to be the Warriors and then whatever team LeBron's on. But the past couple of years, we've gotten a little bit these younger teams. Even the Nuggets you can throw in there. Jokic, 3-time MVP, going to be 3-time MVP, still in his 20s, so he's kind of new age. And in the old guard, Kevin Durant and Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, LeBron, all at home. And we're only in the conference semifinals, so it's been fun, especially in the West. These young teams. Anthony Edwards, only 22 years old, been putting up crazy numbers. Obviously a 2-0 series lead coming back home to Minnesota. And another young team, Oklahoma City Thunder, hasn't lost in the playoffs either. They swept in the first round as well.
Going to be exciting. I think it's that they talk about eras of basketball, right? You had the MJ era, and then we kind of had what I would consider.
Well, it was the 90s where you had so many talented stars that could just never knock off MJ. And in the Eastern Conference for 10 years with LeBron, no one else went to the finals besides LeBron and his teams. Of course, for a while in Miami with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. But yeah, it feels different. It feels like a new era of the NBA. Even the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference, they're the favorites to come out. They're probably the favorites to win the whole thing, but that group hasn't won a title yet. They lost 2 years ago to Golden State, so I don't like to see Boston win because they do too much of it, at least in my lifetime. But I do really like their team, Jason Tatum.
Yeah, no, Jason Tatum, again, one of those younger players, and it's not to say that we're not going to have, that tomorrow LeBron, Kevin Durant, Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, all these older guys are going to retire. But if I had to say, I think that we're entering kind of a new era of basketball, and it includes a lot of these young stars that are up and coming and competing for championships.
For sure. I mean, the league is in good hands, and we have to mention the New York Knicks.
Yeah.
Jalen Brunson completely came out of his shell.
Came onto the map and has made New York, a place to.
And I keep hearing commentators and Knicks fans alike saying, no one expected this when he went to New York. That was just a free agent signing. Like, okay, great, we have a point guard. He'll probably start. You know, it wasn't even a sure shot that he was going to be a starter with the Knicks. And now he's gone 4 straight playoff games with 40-plus points. So it's fun. I'm hoping we get a Celtics-Knicks conference finals in the East. Yeah. That'll make the East a lot more interesting, in my opinion. And then we might have the young guns going at it in the West. If OKC takes down Dallas in the semifinals and Minnesota wins 2 more games to win their series against Denver, 2 really young teams with a spot in the NBA Finals on the line.
Yep.
So I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to be exciting. I think we have to touch on it. The unfortunate circumstances for the Milwaukee Bucks.
That stunk.
You lose your...
But for the second straight year, really.
Yeah. I mean,
where Giannis is out for a couple of games, Dame's out for a couple of games, and Indiana just runs. They couldn't keep up.
No, and I think...
And you don't really expect a Milwaukee team led by Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez to advance in the playoffs, if we're being honest.
No, you don't. And
you need the 2-time MVP and Giannis, the superstar.
Yeah.
You need Damian Lillard, and they weren't healthy.
No, and I think if you have either one of them, the Bucks have a great. They may not win the series,
but at least they would push it to.
They would push it to 7 games.
7 games for sure.
Probably. And if they have both of them, they win that series in 6.
So yeah, now they've gone 3 years since the title. You know, haven't really sniffed another one.
No.
As long as you have Giannis, you have a chance, but you need a healthy Giannis. And I know he said after the season was over, he's going to do some reflecting on how he can keep himself healthy over the course of the season. That doesn't involve just sitting out, taking games off and
physical therapy, whatever it is, because the Bucks are at their best when Giannis is on the floor. When Giannis and Damian Lillard, they're at their best +5.
Yeah. I think that'll be important for Giannis. Obviously he's one of the stars in the league, won the MVP twice, but as he ages, it's very important for a lot of these NBA players to
stay healthy.
Keep themselves in playing shape. I think Allie LaForce on the Minnesota broadcast last night had a great report on Mike Conley, a guy who's been in the league for 13, 14 years now. He's in his mid-30s. He's kind of the older guy on that Timberwolves team, and he completely changed his diet and his workout routine after he was in the league for 10 years because he couldn't really keep up the way he was doing it early in his career. So I find that really interesting that these guys really have to work on their bodies as well as their game, in the offseason. Go through an 82-game season. Then on top of it, depending on how far you go in the playoffs, you could be playing 20, 25 more games, and you're looking at 100 basketball games in a season. That's a lot to get through.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they're professional athletes, and their job is not only to play the game, but to be healthy so they can play the game, and they've got to do that. Did we touch on the Pistons?
They're going. Next? They're winning the NBA Finals next year. No, they're not.
No, they're not.
I don't even know where that team goes.
What do they do? And when you look at
they have young talent.
They have young talent. They have Jalen Duren. They have Jaden Ivey.
Cade Cunningham.
What do? Do you need a veteran?
You have a coach that you paid $12 million a year.
Do you need a good veteran player to come in? Do you need a veteran superstar to come into that team?
Is that enough, though?
Is that enough? And if it is enough, who are you getting? Because you're not getting anyone
I mean,
else.
Remember when Blake Griffin went there? Shortly beyond his prime, I would say. His prime was when he was in Los Angeles with the Clippers. But
Chris Paul and
he was a guy that was a big splash for the Pistons. It didn't lead to any results in the playoffs. They haven't been to the playoffs in a long time. Haven't won a playoff series in a longer time. So rough state of affairs there. So
the Pistons gotta work some things out and do things. On another note, WNBA, Caitlin Clark. I don't know if you heard
this. She made her preseason debut.
Made her preseason debut. Interesting fact for you. Ticket sales, WNBA games, are up a whopping, go ahead and guess the percentage. What do you think it is?
1,000?
93%.
Yeah, it's almost double.
Yeah, almost double.
That sounds about right.
Sounds.
I looked, so I'm going to be in Chicago in a couple weeks. I was looking at Cubs and White Sox tickets, and I just clicked on the Chicago Sky to, see what their tickets were going for. Now, since Caitlin Clark and company, these women that were stars in college, Angel Reese is playing for the Chicago Sky. She was a star at LSU, won a national championship. And the tickets were about they weren't dirt cheap, for every game. It was probably the cheapest ticket was like $20, $30. And then you got to the Indiana Fever, and it was $250.
Yeah. I mean, and you've seen it everywhere. And this is what
she's going to sell out every arena she goes to. I know in Washington, they usually play, the Mystics play their games at the Entertainment and Sports Complex. Pretty small arena.
Yeah,
it probably seats 8,000 people. They're playing their game against the Indiana Fever at Capital One Arena, where the Wizards play.
Yeah. And she has
because Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, I mean, and this I love it. I love it. And what I love about Caitlin Clark is when you've seen her in interviews and you've seen her answer questions. Very humble. Now, yeah, she's confident and she knows she's good and she can back it up, and she is.
And the old guard in the WNBA wants to take her down a notch.
Yeah.
You've seen Diana Taurasi be like, "Oh, rude awakening coming." We'll see. There will be an adjustment period.
I'm making it now. She's got 25 plus points in her debut in the first.
Wouldn't shock me. She's going to shoot a lot.
Yeah, first regular season. And she's going to.
The Fever had the #1 overall pick for a reason.
Yeah.
They weren't very good. Of course, they had it last year too, and took Aaliyah Boston from South Carolina. So they should be, obviously. Caitlin Clark is a generational player. We'll see what she does for
93% though, Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
People be buying those tickets.
I believe it, and well, if we're being honest, I've never gone to a WNBA game. That will change very soon.
Change for me as well.
So, that's just the truth of what she's done for the game. So we'll see. Briefly in the NHL, it would have been nice to have the Red Wings in the playoffs because
nice. Win more games in the regular season, please. Jeez, sorry.
Well, or if the Capitals didn't come on like madmen in February and March and start winning all those games, they got ran out of the arena against New York. Just 4 games real quick, less than a week. And now the Rangers still haven't lost in the postseason, as they have a 1-0 series lead on Carolina. Another great series, Bruins Maple Leafs. That was a lot of fun. Bruins in danger of, watching Game 7, that was on ESPN, it was really funny hearing Sean McDonough say over and over and over again that one of these teams is going to be in a really bad spot in the history books, because it would have been consecutive years that the Bruins blew a through-run lead in the first round of the playoffs. Of course, they didn't end up doing that because they won Game 7. Then you have the Maple Leafs, and they are cursed.
They're cursed.
It's just bad news. Like, they have one of the most talented teams every year. 100-point guys. Austin Matthews had 69 goals, almost got to 70 this year, and then they get bounced in the first round. Haven't won a cup since '67, since the original 6.
Maybe the Detroit Pistons and the Toronto Maple Leafs can get together.
And I don't think this is the year we get a Canadian team winning the cup, so that drought will extend another year.
Looking at it, I just don't know who I want. I know who I want to win. I know who I think.
Who is it?
Who do you think's going to win? Who do you think's got it this year? You go first.
I don't know. That Dallas-Vegas series was very entertaining, that one, 7 games. Defending champs, Vegas Golden Knights, get knocked out. So I kind of like the Stars, but I also like the Avalanche. So whoever comes out of that series, I'm picking to win the Western Conference. And then I don't know how you argue against, as I mentioned, the Rangers have a 1-0 series lead on Carolina. I don't know how you pick against the Rangers either, winning the President's Cup and now 5-0 in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's what my pick was going to be. I think that the Rangers are playing. You know that I love quoting coaches, right? And I'm going to quote a college hockey coach. You want to be playing your best hockey at the end of the season. The Rangers are playing their best hockey, and it's the end of the season.
Yeah, so in the Western Conference, you have the Oilers and the Canucks playing one series. I would take the Oilers there. Canucks have had a really good season. Back in the playoffs, it seems like it's been a while since they were relevant. So I would still take the winner of the Dallas-Colorado series over Edmonton to move on to the Stanley Cup. And then, I don't know, the Panthers didn't have it against the Bruins. And the Bruins want revenge for last year because that was the 3-1 series lead, 1-8 matchup that they blew last year. And, Florida looked really good in the first round. Probably have the best goalie left in the playoffs. So we'll see how that series ends up. Boston with a 1-0 series lead. And, it'll be fun to follow along with the NBA and the NHL playoffs as we keep going. So, time to wrap it up. God, we covered a lot. We covered a lot there, Keegan. But thanks so much for tuning in, whether it was live on Facebook or checking us out on YouTube or Spotify. We'll be back again next week before I go on vacation. Then we really dive into the UP All-Star Game and bring in some exciting guests as we move forward. Thanks for tuning in.